Hi, good morning.
Good afternoon.
Buenas tardes. ¿Cómo están? Pura vida, pura vida, pura vida. Let's go. All right, hi everybody. Namaste. My name is Paco. I will be the moderator for the day with four legends right next to me. I am honored to be moderating this panel with you all because you all have contributed so much to the Bitcoin ecosystem. I'm going to start off from the other side. We have Mr. Nick Szabo, a cypherpunk and a founder of BitGold. BitGold was founded in 1998, 10 years before Satoshi Nakamoto came out with Bitcoin. So we have Mr. Nick Szabo. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
We got Samson Mao, founder of Jan3 and Aqua Wallet. Jan3 helps in nation-state adoption. That means your country will start using Bitcoin pretty soon. Thank you.
Fingers crossed.
I've got Francis Pouliot. Francis Pouliot runs one of the best exchanges in the world called Bull Bitcoin. Are you the real bull?
I am.
He's the real bull. If you want a bull run, he's the guy right here. And yes, thanks to Richard being here with us, he's a co-founder of Bitcoin Jungle in Uvita. Uvita has a circular economy called Bitcoin Jungle. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Paco.
Thank you,
Thank
guys. All right, so we have 45 minutes in this panel, and I'm going to jump right in with my basic questions that I have prepared. Everybody, are you excited for this one?
You know it.
All right. So, what is adopting Bitcoin? Over the past 15 years, Bitcoin has grown from just a mailing list for the cypherpunks to now being used in 15 circular economies. That is amazing. While from emails to reality, I am using Bitcoin on a daily basis. So we're going to talk about how adopting Bitcoin is, how everybody got in. So let's just dive first straight into the questions. I will start with Nick Szabo, please. And to everyone, as you can follow down, what were the reasons behind your own first steps to adopting Bitcoin? How have those first steps changed over the past decade for newcomers? Nick Szabo, followed by Francis, then Samson, and Richard. Please.
Okay, well, I guess you could call me a pre-adopter in some sense. So it was very much an intellectual interest in developing these ideas and advancing the ball on them. And so, for example, the development of BitGold with having a trust-minimized global layer, like I described in my talk, but digitally, so you could make digital payments. And so that naturally evolved an interest in Bitcoin, of course, which influenced a lot of those ideas.
How do you feel about it? How do you think they have evolved?
Well, I mean, somebody who's adopting it today is going to have a lot more practical, your typical adopter today is going to be a lot more practically oriented. You know, does it benefit their own business and that kind of thing.
Thank you. Over to you, Francis.
Well, I'm curious, in terms of timeline, did you imagine that in 2023 we would have retail payments in the middle of Costa Rica? Do you think we're early or late, or what was your expectation?
Yeah, I didn't really have a timeline expectation. It was pretty abstract. Like, this could be a cool thing. And 9 out of 10 is a cool thing you think about never happened. So it's not worth exploring in detail how fast you think something is going to develop. It's more abstractly whether it's a good idea.
Would you like to answer? How did you get into it? And how do you see have it grown? Because you run an exchange from 2012 or 13?
Yeah, 2013. I mean, I got interested in Bitcoin also from an intellectual perspective. I was interested in Austrian economics and the theories of sound money, and got interested in fiat currency being the root cause of a lot of the issues that I could see in society. I also got disgruntled with the power of traditional politics in solving problems, because if a lot of the social problems that we're seeing are caused by the debasement of money or the centralization of banking and finance into a subset of trusted third parties, then regardless of whether you vote left or right, you still end up with the same underlying monetary and financial system. So I got interested in how the private sector create a money that's not issued by the government. And then that was my first intellectual journey into Bitcoin. And then I became much more interested later on in the permissionless aspect of transacting with Bitcoin for payments on a daily basis. I used to really think more of Bitcoin as a hedge against government money or as a way to opt out of government money, but then using it for payments without requiring complicated paperwork or complicated onboarding, having an open network for payments where you can send payments internationally. And that eventually led me to more of the circular economy concept in the end, where from being an intellectual, free market idea to a community payments platform. So that's kind of like how it evolved for me.
That's been a journey from going through the governments tracking you to you now using money permissionless over this last 10 years. That's wonderful to know that. How about you, Samson? How you have a lot to say, I know.
Not that much. I mean, also, like Francis, from an intellectual perspective. So my background is game development. And during that time, I think game economies were starting to become more and more complex. So if you look at something like EVE Online, they started hiring economists to help them manage those economies. And I had known about Bitcoin since probably 2011 when I started reading about it, but I didn't get that intrigued. It was this article I found in 2013 that was explaining how to mine Bitcoin. And then after reading that was my aha moment that there's actually no one behind it. Because prior to that, I always thought it's a virtual currency. Someone's issuing it, someone's managing it, but it didn't really click for me until I went deep down the mining rabbit hole. And I tried to set it all up, and I found there's nobody behind the curtain. And that was what made Bitcoin even more interesting for me. And from that time on, I just kept getting more and more interested. But pretty simple and straightforward.
How do you see it after 2011 to 2023 in 12 years?
I would say overall, the timeline has accelerated a lot from my expectations. So like in my presentation, I was saying we're seeing nation-state adoption as of a few years ago. And that was not in my bingo cards. And also nation-state attacks. So China cracking down on mining, I would say, is the first real attempt to shut down Bitcoin in some way. And Bitcoin weathered that storm too. But all of these things, the nation-state attacks, nation-state adoption, they're much faster than I would have anticipated. So I would say everything is accelerating far faster than most of us will guess.
Awesome, that's good. Richard.
Okay, so I'm a little bit later than you guys. I sold my house in Hong Kong and I was kind of cash rich in 2017, and just as that bull run was running, so I put my money into some coins and Bitcoin, and I kind of sat on it. Didn't really know what to do with it. Didn't know how to use it. And it was only when I then moved from Hong Kong to Costa Rica, and then I started learning about what was happening in El Salvador and looking at Costa Rica, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I can see this now. I can see the vision of like what's possible. And so that's when I really started to deep dive 2019 into 2020. And suddenly I was like, wow, and I've got it as well. Not only am I learning about it, I already have it. So it was the real kind of like seeing the process of like having something that I didn't really understand, and then going to a place where I could see where the possibilities where you can change a country. So, and I thought, yeah, Costa Rica can change as well. So that was my journey.
And are you happy that you are in Costa Rica?
I love Costa Rica.
Why? Why do you love Costa Rica that much?
I mean, it has everything, right? It has so many great things and great communities, great environment. So, yeah. I've been lucky in all the places I've lived, it's been beautiful. So I've been lucky.
All right, so there you go. We all love Costa Rica. Pura vida, everyone. Woo. Woo. Let's go. All right, my second question is, and I would like Samson to start. And because Samson is going to give the best answer to this one, I'm really excited. And then followed by Francis, Richard, and Nick. We'll end up with Nick. The question is, how do you view the current adoption of Bitcoin in comparison to the adoption of other cryptocurrencies in local economies around the world?
Interesting question. I don't see much adoption of any other cryptocurrencies in economies. I know that
Roger Ver bribed some politicians in St. Kitts to take Bitcoin Cash or Bcash, and then that guy got arrested. But the only real adoption of any cryptocurrency is of Bitcoin. And we're seeing that around the world, and it just seems to be accelerating more and more. You have countries mining Bitcoin, accumulating Bitcoin on their balance sheet, Bitcoin laws being passed where they're accepting Bitcoin as legal tender. So I'd say there is no second best. It's just Bitcoin. And then there's not really any cryptocurrency adoption.
That's it? No Tether?
Well, Tether is a stablecoin. I think it depends on what you say is what. I would say stablecoins are in their own category because they are centralized to a company. They're not denying and saying it's decentralized. They use different rails, but it's still issued by some company with attestations of those assets, and they're buying T-bills through some company, right? This is why the stablecoins that pretend to be decentralized, like Maker, what is it called? MakerDAO? MakerDAI? That thing. They're buying T-bills, so it's a company, right? It's not decentralized whatsoever. And they're buying like USDC, so it's like a mask pretending to be decentralized. But yeah, I would say there's Bitcoin, stablecoins, and then cryptocurrencies. So I don't really see much adoption anywhere of cryptocurrencies. Maybe you guys see something else that I don't see.
Okay, so a lot of the shitcoin adoption that we see is driven by it's marketing headlines, and it's going to be these groups that will typically issue or create a new currency, and they're going to do partnerships with institutions, or they're going to announce that they've integrated into some other system, or they're going to make these announcements with the hope of increasing the value of their cryptocurrency. Very much similar to how public companies that are issuing securities and stocks are always continuously trying to create press marketing events to generate demand for their token and to pump essentially the price of their token. And since a lot of these tokens are pre-mined, or at least a large portion of these tokens are controlled by the issuer, by the company which is promoting those tokens, I see a lot of this so-called adoption that you may read in the headlines. It's not actual organic adoption in the real world. It's a marketing strategy most of the time in order for the creators of the currency to make the price of their coin go up so they can sell it at the top and essentially cash out for fiat. Whereas the adoption of Bitcoin is very organic, it's very decentralized, it's very grassroots. A lot of the adoption of Bitcoin you will never really see in the headlines. There are circular economies all around the world where you have thousands of people using Bitcoin, and other than Twitter and some social media stuff, nobody really knows about it. It's happening it's kind of like there's like a spontaneous order to Bitcoin adoption. Bitcoin adoption in Costa Rica is phenomenal. So Costa Rica is one of the places in the world where you can spend Bitcoin at the most places. El Salvador is known for its Bitcoin adoption, but Costa Rica is also kind of up there with Bitcoin adoption. We're very happy. We at Bitcoin Jungle, I mean, that's our goal at Bitcoin Jungle and at Bull Bitcoin. We are driving a grassroots efforts to onboard people. And how do you onboard people to Bitcoin? It's one at a time, really. We spend a lot of energy and effort in onboarding people. There's Bitcoin adoption happening at all sorts of different spheres of society. In the West, in America, a lot of people talk about institutional adoption. Banks, hedge funds, public companies are investing in Bitcoin. But here, locally, it's really being adopted for payments. People use Bitcoin for different things. And in terms of cryptocurrency adoption, there might be one or two cryptocurrencies that have some use cases that are fulfilling some action that are actually providing value to people other than as a speculative investment. But obviously, Bitcoin is the one cryptocurrency that has any meaningful adoption worldwide.
So is Bitcoin the answer to everything?
Bitcoin fixes a lot of things because the monetary system breaks a lot of things. A lot of things are broken because our money is broken. So by fixing the money, we can fix a lot of these problems. Bitcoin doesn't fix everything, but it gives us a lot of options to fix it. Bitcoin also changes people personally. So after you've been in Bitcoin for a long time, you'll probably see that your values change, the way that you perceive your own time change, the way that you perceive, for example, having children or descendants. A lot of Bitcoiners, it gives you hope. A lot of people in the world feel disenfranchised and feel like they have no option and they're suffering a system. Bitcoin allows you to feel powerful, right? You're taking back your destiny. So Bitcoin fixes a lot of things.
Bitcoin does change you. This is the proof. He used to wear a suit with slick back hair.
No more suits.
That's Costa Rica.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's really hot down there, right? All right, Richard, let's go.
So when we set up Bitcoin Jungle, we didn't ask anybody's permission. We didn't go to the Bitcoin HR department or the PR department, or we just went, this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to do it, and we just started to create it, from storekeeper to storekeeper, from restaurant to restaurant, just going around. And now if you go down to Evita and Ochal and Dominical, that area, you can spend your Bitcoin in many places, and your experience will be very fluid. So that kind of take-up of like using a digital currency doesn't exist in many places. Costa Rica, we're really fortunate we have that. And and when we set up the project, we didn't even set up a business. We didn't set up our own HR department, or it was literally just like, hey, you want to do this? Yeah. Hey, you want to do that? You want to help? And it's just that organicness of Bitcoin, because it's not owned by anyone, because it's not controlled by anyone. People go, yeah, I want to be involved in that, right? And there's no one looking over your shoulder going, hey, that's the wrong way to do it, right? And that's the viral part of it, which sets it apart from other coins which are controlled, and they have all this kind of like, this is our master plan, this is what we want to do, this is where we're going to go. No, we asked no permission. When we hard forked the Galoy wallet, we didn't tell them, we just did it. They were so shocked, they were like, oh my God, you hard forked the wallet? Yeah, we wanted that to happen, but we didn't think it would happen so fast. And yeah, we just, was like, yeah, we'll do that, we'll do this, we'll do that, and that's the beauty of it. It's uncontrollable because anybody can run with it, anyone. So it's unstoppable.
Well, that's how Satoshi did the original Bitcoin. He didn't ask any permission of anybody, he just put it out there, did it. It cuts through so much bureaucracy and red tape to do it that way. Okay, so the distinction with stablecoins versus other kinds of crypto is important, because stablecoins have their benefits, stability, lack of volatility, over short and medium term, but on the long term, they're subject to catastrophic failure. They're subject to regulatory oppression, where regulators can increase the costs of doing stablecoins in various ways. So it's a mixed bag, but I can see the attraction of stablecoins for merchant adoption because in the short and medium term, they're less volatile than Bitcoin. If you're comparing Bitcoin to other non-stablecoin cryptos, then Bitcoin is more stable and it's more secure. Besides the lock-in advantage, and it's already being used more places, it still hasn't been excelled in its security or its stability either.
So, do you have hope for any other cryptocurrency to do what Bitcoin is doing?
I mean, in theory, you could do something that's even more trust minimized and something, but it's pretty hard to do.
There's a certain irony here, isn't there? Is my mic on? Yeah. There's a certain irony because these centralized projects should be able to do it way better than Bitcoin, but they don't.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's why don't they do it? They could easily roll out some payments program in Ovita.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Sometimes the Bitcoin Jungle team, we won't even meet for 2 or 3 weeks. And yet it's still, and then we'll come and, oh, this restaurant signed up, this is happening, these people have contacted us. And there's no overall, we've got to do this master plan. And you'd think that people sitting down and in a corporate setting and making a master plan and, a business model, you'd think they would do better than us. But the reality is that, we do have a bit of a first-person starter advantage, but I don't think any other coin is going to catch up with what we've done in Bitcoin Jungle now, because it's just like its own train now. I met somebody the other day who's now our representative in Tamarindo. I don't know her. I've never met her before. But it's like, hi, pleased to meet you. You're now our Tamarindo representative. Fantastic. You know, she didn't have to apply to HR. It's like, it doesn't matter. It just goes. It just goes where it needs to go.
The first mover advantage of Bitcoin has a lot of benefits. For example, when Bitcoin was launched in the beginning, it was not decentralized. There was one programmer that was effectively deciding the consensus rules. There was a very small amount of miners. There was no economic node distribution around the world. It was a few people. So it was easily subject to attack. And because it was the first, it was unknown, and it was able to fly under the radar for many, many years. If China or a big government wanted to destroy Bitcoin back in 2009, they had very few doors to knock on in order to take Bitcoin out. The new cryptocurrencies that are coming out in the future, they can't start out with this kind of like, organic, decentralized growth. They need to bootstrap their networks by introducing centralization, because otherwise they're subject to attack. Because people now know about cryptocurrencies, and if you're launching a cryptocurrency today, and you launch it like Bitcoin, like very, very like organically and spontaneously, it'll just be attacked. So you have to like bootstrap it with centralization. So that's I don't think that the context in which Bitcoin was created, it was allowed to grow without too much intervention to protect it against attacks for a while, and it kind of built up a natural immunity over time, which is a very robust decentralized network of people. Bitcoin also has another characteristics, which is there's a culture behind Bitcoin. I like to say that a Bitcoiner buys Bitcoin today because it will be more expensive in the future for him to buy Bitcoin, right? So for example, let's say that Bitcoin is $30,000 and I make like $10 an hour. It's going to take me 3,000 hours of work to acquire a Bitcoin. In the future, it might take me 10,000 hours of work or 20,000 hours of work to acquire the same amount of Bitcoin. A lot of the crypto people, they buy the crypto today in order to sell it in the future for fiat, for more dollars. Bitcoiners tend to do this from an ideological perspective. Bitcoin Jungle, we spend a lot of money, a lot of energy, a lot of effort, and it is a nonprofit project, right? So we don't do this for money. We do this because we strongly believe in the cause of Bitcoin, and there is no financial incentive to do so. In fact, the financial incentive for a Bitcoiner is to tell nobody about Bitcoin and to not work on Bitcoin, to suppress. We want the price of Bitcoin to stay as low as possible so we can buy more. We have no self-interest in promoting Bitcoin, because that makes the price of Bitcoin go up, and it means that Bitcoin becomes less affordable for us. So we do it because we believe in the liberating power of Bitcoin, and it's almost like a gift that we're giving to people, right? So, there's a karmic component also to like introduce Bitcoin to people, kind of gets you a little, so it is self-interested in the sense that we're gaining karma from it. But I think this culture of dedication, commitment to a cause greatly separates Bitcoin from the other blockchain projects, for example.
Wow. Guys, fix the money, fix the world. You want to create your cryptocurrency, go ahead. But can you fix the world? Can you fix the world? Because most of the people don't have money and they suffer. And they try to bring the next Bitcoin. Everybody try to be rich. As to sum it up, you said the karmic energy. What you sow, you see, right? So if you're sowing some hard work, you get the benefits of it. And this was happening back, correct me if I was wrong, like back then there was no revenue model. Bitcoiners, the cypherpunks, they used to work, they used to sacrifice their time after working their life, and they used to buy Bitcoin, hodl it, and then when the price goes up, that used to fund them. And from there to come today that we are talking about Bitcoin jungle, which brings me to my next question. It is a beautiful question that I really like. I have traveled to 40 countries, been to over 15 circular economies. So my question is to each one of you, I'll start with Richard here. Which Bitcoin circular economy have you each visited around the world so far in person yet? Starts with Richard, Francis, Samson, and Nick.
Okay, so obviously Bitcoin Jungle, and I've been to El Salvador a few times. So that's Bitcoin Beach, and I've been to Guatemala, to the Bitcoin Lake, and yeah, that's it. I run a school, so I'm busy. doing that, so I don't get a chance to travel as much as I'd like.
Oh, you run a school here in Costa Rica?
Yes, I run a school.
How many parents pay you in Bitcoin?
It depends. The whole Bitcoin jungle project started because I'm not a tech guy, right? And so I wanted to accept Bitcoin for my school, but I didn't know how to do that. Like I said, I had the Bitcoin, but I didn't really know how to process payments and stuff. So I just reached out to the community and said, hey, can we do this? And then people contacted me and said, hey, we should set up a wallet. And that's how the Bitcoin jungle project started, from me wanting to accept Bitcoin payments in my school. And so, yeah, we get world schoolers traveling through Costa Rica, and those people generally pay in Bitcoin. And then obviously bringing money into Costa Rica is expensive because our school is for expatriates. And so, you know, bringing money from Canada or bringing money from the US and then paying fees to us is much better than trying to bring cash and stuff like this. So it solves a lot of problems for some people, and it becomes a hurdle for others. So a lot of our time is spent educating parents how to get a wallet so they can do a transfer to pay their fees for school.
Like, you run this Bitcoin jungle, you said you have been to Guatemala. So Guatemala has a community called Lago Bitcoin. People use between themselves Bitcoin. Yes, they use their quetzals. You said El Salvador. El Salvador also has a community like this. Honduras also has a community like this. There are such communities. And Francis also is a part of the Bitcoin jungle team who has helped on-ramp, off-ramp. That means if you use Bitcoin and you want cash, it comes straight using, what's that application?
Yeah, and it's a little bit ironic, actually. When you're talking about a circular Bitcoin economy, the ultimate end goal of Bitcoin, that is certainly the one that I subscribe to, is that we use Bitcoin not only for payments, not only as a store of value, but also as a unit of account. Ultimately, my dream is that when you go to the market, the fruits and the vegetables are priced in Satoshis and Sats or in Bitcoins. They're not priced in dollars and converted with your app. They're fully priced in Sats. And for this to happen, you need to remove entirely the need to convert to fiat. So the merchant gets paid in Bitcoin, the merchant pays his supplier in Bitcoin, his supplier pays his staff in Bitcoin, everybody gets paid in Bitcoin. Unfortunately, we live in a reality where Bitcoin has a lot of downsides for a merchant. Bitcoin is volatile, right? So as a merchant, when you're accepting Bitcoin, you are exposing yourself to foreign currency exchange risk. That's one of the downsides of Bitcoin. One of the positive upsides is that over a medium to long-term period of time, that volatility is in your favor, right? The purchasing power of Bitcoin goes up, but as a merchant, you have a very small time preference because you need to pay bills immediately, you need to pay staff immediately. Your staff needs to be paid like next week. And if the price of Bitcoin drops by 50% next week, you cannot pay your staff. That is a problem. So in order to solve this, you need to be able to give merchants the option to go from the Bitcoin money to the regular fiat currency. In Bitcoin Jungle, we had a fully Bitcoin-only adoption of Bitcoin for a long time, but then we hit a ceiling at some point, I think, where it became harder and harder to convince merchants to accept Bitcoin because it was very difficult for a merchant to cash out. How is a merchant supposed to cash out in Costa Rica from their Lightning wallet? There's very, very few options, and most of them are terrible. The main option is, you send Bitcoins to Binance and then you receive an international wire transfer into your Costa Rican bank account from wherever bank Binance is, and that is a big friction hurdle to business. So what we did is we became the first Bitcoin exchange, the first Bitcoin company, my company Bull Bitcoin Canada, from Canada, to integrate Bitcoin to the SynPay payments system, so that with the Bitcoin Jungle wallet, you can move from you can convert your Bitcoins on the Lightning Network to SynPay payment out. So this gives the option for merchants to instantly convert their Bitcoin payments to a regular. And the really cool thing about this is a lot of people are still holding Bitcoin. A lot of the merchants are still accepting Bitcoin payments and choosing not to sell them for fiat, because as a merchant, they are also investors. They're making an investment decision or a savings decision saying, okay, like I have a little bit of profit, I have a little bit of cushion. I don't need to pay bills right away. I think I'm going to save for a few years some of my income in Bitcoin. A lot of the merchants are choosing this option, which is phenomenal. But those who need to pay their bills have the option to cash out. So it increases the confidence, because if you can only get in Bitcoin and you can't get out, as a merchant, I was thinking like, well, this is a pyramid. This is a scam. Right? If I can buy the Bitcoin and I can't ever, cash it out for real money, I'm very suspicious of this. So giving that option like really helped cement in the idea of the merchants, like, I have options. Bitcoin is a payment system unlike any other. And then so what we've seen is moving some of the merchants that were accepting Bitcoin in the beginning were individual entrepreneurs. So a lot of them are farmers that are selling their fruits, their vegetables. And now it's moving more towards bigger businesses like ferreterias or bigger restaurants that have multiple employees or tourist companies or hotels. So it is ironic that in order to promote a circular economy, you need to first promote an economy which is not circular, where people are exiting from Bitcoin to fiat. But our goal is that as time goes on, they will start cashing less and less, because fiat is the bad money, right? So like they're going to be selling the good money for bad money, which is they're going to be trading their good Bitcoins for bad fiat currency. And then they're going to be suffering the effects of that over time, because they're going to be losing their purchasing power. Maybe you're going to be cut off from the banking access. So over time, they're going to learn through the mistake, and which is, maybe we nothing hurts someone more. Nothing will convince you to be a Bitcoiner more than selling Bitcoin and seeing the price of Bitcoin rise over the next 3 years, right? So that's our huge lesson in adoption. It's like selling Bitcoin and watching it go up afterwards. That's something that really creates conviction to hold Bitcoin long term.
Yeah, I agree. When the price goes up, everybody feels happy. So this is a wallet called Bitcoin Jungle. How many of you have this wallet? Oh, wow. So you guys can get your Bitcoin out on SynPay in your bank, go drink 2 cervezas, come back, buy the Bitcoin again.
So
well, hold the Bitcoin, okay? But if you really must, you can cash out with SynPay.
Just to be clear, if you go into your wallet, go into settings, scroll down, there's a SynPay menu there, hit that, boom, you can pay anybody in Costa Rica anything.
I was looking at the pay.
Game changing.
I was looking at the pay options. There is somebody out here. They're helping you do crypto to pay your employees. I forget the company name. There's Charlie Pay out there. There are people that are providing these services. But this service right here that's being provided, you're not getting paid to do this, right? This
No, it's actually quite complicated and expensive to run. And in terms of getting payroll in Bitcoin, like, I think that the most powerful thing that someone can do is get paid in Bitcoin. The main reason why I spend Bitcoin is because I want people to get paid in Bitcoin. Getting paid in Bitcoin is the start of the circular economy. It's not spending, but it's really getting paid in Bitcoin. So my goal is to get people to accept their payroll in Bitcoin.
Let's go. Everybody needs some Bitcoin. Let's go, Samson.
I don't want to hug, and we saw this happening, because when we started Bitcoin Jungle, what happened was we went to the ferias, and none of them wanted to accept Bitcoin, but we would go there and they would accept Bitcoin and we'd cash them out that day. You take Bitcoin, we'll give you the cash. It'll be easy for you. And then slowly people started to cash out less. And then what happened was people started to pay for their table at the markets with their Bitcoin, right? So then the market becomes a circular economy, right? It started to happen naturally, right? And so as we expand, and more businesses accept, then they'll accept it as a means of payment. So, like ferias and everybody will accept it, and then everybody can get paid in Bitcoin. But it starts small and grows big, right? And we've seen it happen. We know how it works. And it's just that slowly it starts to move like this.
Thanks. Samson has traveled the world too. Samson, how many circular economies have you been to? I know it was about circular economics. We just dived deep into Bitcoin Jungle, which is from Costa Rica, which is a pioneer in the Bitcoin ecosystem. Everybody looks up to the Costa Rican model and they're copying it and starting it in their world. Samson, which ones have you been to?
Maybe 2. So Bitcoin Beach, Bitcoin Jungle. But I want to go back a step here. So I'm pretty sure I coined the phrase circular economy in 2017 or 18, and then Sergey from Bitrefill started using it too. No. And in recent years, it started taking off. But when I first coined it, it was a model off of recycling. So you talk about a circular economy and recycling, where you use stuff like milk cartons, bottles, and you can recycle it. They make new ones, and it really is a circle. You go back and forth. But I think when I first started talking about it, it was about Lightning. I said Lightning enables Bitcoin circular economies, and that is because it removes so much friction from the entire process. Because some of us are old enough to remember pre-Lightning days. That's when you're paying 25 cents, $1, maybe more, just to do any transaction. And what some people would do back then is spend and replenish. But that is also high friction too, because you're losing Bitcoin every time you do that. And you do want to do that because you want people to have Bitcoin, like Francis is saying. But the point I'm getting at is I don't think any of these are fully circular economies yet. No. It is the beginning of a circular economy or merchant adoption. Because I think your end state, where everything is priced in Satoshis, that's basically hyper-Bitcoinization. You don't go back anymore. You price it in that. But I think before you reach that point, if the merchants spend it back out, then you have it. But not all merchants spend it back out. They usually cash out. The majority, I would say, you can correct me if I'm wrong, the majority of merchants, even at Bitcoin Beach, are cashing out. So that is not really a circular economy. But if they're paying for tables, that's getting better. Yeah, but I think we have to maintain a high bar for ourselves and say a circular economy is when everyone is accepting and spending, and there is real throughput there.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that the term circular economy has been kind of like co-opted to mean a place where a lot of people accept Bitcoin, as you mentioned. If Bitcoin circular economy really existed in Bitcoin jungle, like the bull Bitcoin integration would not exist, and I don't think there is a single place on the planet right now where you have a fully circular economy. Maybe like I don't know, within a small family unit, maybe people are like, but it is certainly the goal. Some people think that Bitcoin is going to coexist with fiat, and exchanges will always exist. Like when I founded Bull Bitcoin, we specialize in changing fiat to Bitcoin and Bitcoin to fiat. It's a very simple model. Our corporate charter states that we must obsolete ourselves. We must be eradicated, right? As long as Bull Bitcoin exists in its current form, Bitcoin has not succeeded in its mission. I firmly believe that one day a global circular economy will exist, and all of the benefits of Bitcoin for society that we're outlining are potential benefits if a circular economy appears globally. So we're definitely not there yet. Thank you for pointing that out, because definitely should not be claiming a victory of circular economy, even though it's a cool term. We are far from it. But we are much closer than we were 5 years ago.
Definitely. I just want us to keep a high bar.
For sure.
Yeah, for sure.
We are there. We are on the journey. You guys should join the bandwagon, get some Bitcoin, and convince your parents to buy Bitcoin. If you can convince your parents to buy Bitcoin, you have done the right job. God will be happy. What do you think, Nick?
So to add to that comment, so those fiat on and off ramps, which are important in the transition that you're doing, they're likely to get more risky and expensive over time. Whereas the Bitcoin is likely to get less risky, less volatile over time. So the circular economy is going to help conserve on the increasingly expensive fiat on and off ramps.
Yeah, absolutely.
The more circular opportunities you can find,
The merchant's calculation of costs and benefits to converting is going to start to change over time. Mm-hmm. As you mentioned, interfacing with fiat is not becoming easier. Mm. There's always more friction with fiat. You never hear of, oh, my bank just innovated and made everything so much easier. It's always, okay, more paperwork, more friction. Whereas in the Bitcoin space, the user's experience is always getting better.
Mm. There's also a demand function there too. As more people want Bitcoin, they just don't want the fiat. So you end up spending your Bitcoin because they don't want the fiat, right? So I think it sorts itself out over time.
I'm gonna. You didn't answer the question, Nick. How many circular economies have you been to? Because I'm gonna jump into the last question.
Yeah, I'm a stay-at-home hodler, so I have intellectual interest.
Hodler, have you used your Bitcoin over the time?
I'm a stay-at-home hodler, so like I said, my interest is intellectual.
Just
in
hodling.
Part, yeah.
Amazing, guys. So just buy Bitcoin, you can hodl too. And if you don't want to hodl, you can spend and replace. You have various opportunities here. I'm going to jump in. We got last 5 minutes. Everybody loves to talk a lot of things. We can go on for hours. Bitcoiners don't stop talking. I leave the table sometimes and go back to my normie life. And then I come and join them because nobody understands me in the normie life. So I really love you guys because you guys have given me, that is karma. I come from India, we believe in karma. We got last 5 minutes, it's going to be a minute each, the timer is there. All right, and this is important for everybody who's listening down here. We're going to start off with Francis, Richard, Samson, and end with Nick. What's the most important advice you would give to someone who wants to build a local Bitcoin circular economy in their home country?
Yeah, just do it. There's nothing preventing you from doing it. The tools, there's open source tools everywhere. It starts with one person. Start a local meetup. You don't need to ask anybody's permission. Just go ahead. Don't get discouraged by people who laugh at you or make fun of Bitcoin. Just, forget those people. Everybody gets Bitcoin at the price they deserve ultimately. So don't waste your time on people who are not receptive to your idea. You don't need to convince the masses of people. You just convince the people that you think deserve it. Getting someone into Bitcoin is you're doing them a favor. So you're doing someone a favor when you're getting them into Bitcoin. So if someone doesn't want to receive your favor, just move on and go to someone else.
But starter economy, you can start that circular economy. Over to you.
Yeah, I'm going to be counterintuitive and say, think small. Like, basically, when you listen to all the other projects, they're like, big, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do that. But the way to start a Bitcoin project is just look and go, can I get that shop to do something, and can I get that shop? And just knowing your community and knowing your space and thinking, okay, one at a time, slowly, thinking on a small scale. And next thing, like I said, Bitcoin Jungle started because I wanted to start a school that accepted Bitcoin, right? But I knew that would be the catalyst to set it all on fire. So, but all I needed to do was just solve my problem. And then that helped to solve other people's problems. So thinking on a small scale, you go home to your community and look at your community and think, how can I improve this? How can I improve that person's ability to accept frictionless payments or whatever problems they have? So looking on a small scale actually means it becomes really big and really wide.
Start small.
Gradually, then suddenly.
Samson?
Yeah, interesting question. I was chatting earlier outside having a snack with a gentleman from the audience. He asked me, how do we start more of these Bitcoin economies? And I said, you can't really jumpstart them. It's got to be done by people living there. Otherwise, it's artificial. So I guess with that point, it's really up to you guys. You have to choose the spot you start. And ideally, that's where you live, because that's your community, that's your people. And that's the only real way to do this. You can't just say, we're going to start something, I don't know, in some random place. It doesn't work that way. It's got to be grassroots from the ground, from you where you live. So the best answer is go and do it, and believe you can do it.
Like, literally start with the shops that you shop at.
Yeah.
And can I just jump in? And if you look at your community and you realize that they don't want to accept Bitcoin, you can move and go somewhere and go and help in a community that wants you to do
but
that.
Don't move to Bitcoin Jungle, because they're already good. Go somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly. Go anywhere you want.
I was talking to Nick, and Nick said he's really interested into merchant adoption. So what?
Well, yeah,
what's your advice?
that's already been talked about a fair amount, that merchants want to have, they have short and medium term needs to pay their employees, pay their bills, and so forth. And in the current era, the stable coin looks a lot better for that. The dollar looks a lot better for that. There are risks to that, of course, but those are kind of invisible to the typical merchant. And in the long run, if they're saving for retirement, saving for their kids' education, then that's the part they want to put in Bitcoin. That's going to be much better for them than a fiat currency. And then the other thing I wanted to say, in adding to what's been said so far in this question, is that it's good to pay attention to social scale. If you had like the ideal old-fashioned village where neighbors have been living next to neighbors their whole lives, they know who they can trust, they know who they can't trust. You could, pay IOUs over Bluetooth and never, or very seldom touch the internet, and that would work on that small scale, at that social scale. But if you bring in tourists, you bring in businessmen from out of the town or something, now all of a sudden you're on a big social scale and it's going to break. People are going to defraud it. So you've got to pay attention to social scale because you can be tempted to do that cheap IOU thing, and it works really well at a certain scale, but then you try to scale it, it breaks. So.
Yeah, just an interesting point. When we first started the Bitcoin Jungle project, somebody came in and wanted to give us like, or suggested we should have a really big investment, and they wanted to give us lots of money. And we said no, we didn't want to do it. And we basically went a different route because we knew that would kill us straight away, right? And you're talking about scale. All they would talk about scale, 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 scale. We knew that it had to be built slowly. It had to be built, and we couldn't. Otherwise, we'd break the system before we had even made it. Yeah, so that's another.
Amazing, guys. For me, you need to love the place. If you fall in love with the place, you value your friendship. And if you value your friendship, you will give the most valuable thing in this world, which is your time. And time is Bitcoin. If you love the friends, give them Bitcoin. If you want to love them, give them Bitcoin. If you don't want to love them, don't give them Bitcoin. Yeah? I really thank you, gentlemen, for your time. It's an honor. Let's give up a round of applause for these wonderful people.
Thank you, Paco.
Thank you.
Paco.
It says time is up, and thank you so much, man. Thank you, Richard.
Well done, did well. Thank you.
Turn my sorrow into treasure gold.